It's been an unbelievable time for Apex Legends, which came out of nowhere to dominate the conversation like no game has since Fortnite. But it wasn't a straightforward journey to get here, either for Respawn Entertainment or for EA. Here's how Apex Legends came to be. It's difficult to separate Apex Legends from Titanfall 2. Not only are the games set in the same world, the disappointing sales for the Titanfall sequel are likely what made Apex Legends possible in the first place. That's not a knock on Titanfall 2, which was well received by pretty much everyone who played it. The game just didn't move very many copies, and that has less to do with the way it played and more to do with when it was released, late October 2016, right after the release of EA's Battlefield 1 and just before the debut of Activision's Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. What happened is pretty simple. Titanfall 2 got sent out to die.
Sometimes you don't get to choose your path. It chooses you.
Despite all of the confident talk from EA CEO Andrew Wilson, who believed it was a great idea to sandwich Titanfall 2 in between new Battlefield and Call of Duty titles, the game never really got a chance to separate itself from the rest of the pack. The fall season is a typically crowded release window as it is, but Titanfall 2 had the additional challenge of being hedged in by two of the largest first-person shooter franchises in existence. That's not exactly a recipe for success, and the game performed about as well as most keyboard pundits predicted, which likely paved the way for EA to make a very large purchase in the year that followed. A year after Titanfall 2's release, there was no shortage of work happening at Respawn Entertainment. The studio, then independent, had just wrapped up its post-release content for Titanfall 2 and was also hard at work on a few other projects, namely a Star Wars title, which had yet to be officially announced. But there was also a sense in the gaming community that Respawn couldn't afford another disappointment, and it's possible Respawn felt that way too. The studio was apparently approached about a potential acquisition by a South Korean company called Nexon, and reporting suggests that Respawn was definitely listening to offers. And then EA came along and dropped $455 million on the table.
Wow, that's a lot of money.
EA's acquisition of Respawn basically turned the long engagement between the two companies into a full marriage. Respawn was already developing a few titles for the publisher, and in that regard, EA's purchase of Respawn made sense. With the studio's future seeming certain, at least in the short term, many Titanfall fans felt the franchise could still see a third entry. But if anything, what EA's acquisition allowed Respawn to do was experiment. Sure, the company would still develop big retail titles, like the aforementioned Star Wars game, but with such a well-funded roof over its head, the studio could afford to take a few risks, and Respawn did just that by making Apex Legends. It's safe to say that a top-tier free-to-play title like Apex Legends wasn't exactly expected by the community after EA's acquisition of Respawn. If anything, having the resources of a company like EA behind it seemed to imply that Respawn could actually go bigger with a Titanfall 3, building on the foundation of the series' second game. When job openings for Respawn appeared online in late 2018, Titanfall 3 almost felt inevitable. The company hired several personnel to work on what was described as a Titanfall project, with many thinking it likely to be a straight-up sequel. Considering the resources and labor that would go into a project like that, it was widely assumed that we wouldn't catch a glimpse of the new title for at least a few years. As it turns out, Respawn was, indeed, working on a new Titanfall game. It just wasn't the one people expected. Instead of spending years in slow, steady development with info trickling out bit by bit, the game came out fully formed less than 2 months later. And it wasn't just any kind of game either. It was Titanfall without Titans and a free-to-play battle royale. Who'd want to play that? Apparently, a lot of people. Respawn put some serious thought into Apex Legends' launch strategy. As game producer Drew McCoy has acknowledged, the concept sounds terrible on paper. Speaking in an interview with Eurogamer, McCoy said, "We're doing a free-to-play game with essentially loot boxes, after we were bought by EA and it's not Titanfall 3. It's the perfect recipe for a marketing plan to go awry. So why have that? Let's just ship the game and let players play." The company kept development a secret in an effort to better control the narrative around the game, very wisely taking note of EA's past loot box controversies, as well as the disappointment many fans would feel at the lack of a third mainline Titanfall title. Then Respawn took a calculated risk. Instead of announcing Apex Legends early, giving people a chance to hate on it before it ever came out, the studio instead announced the game and launched it on the same day. It's a strategy that seems to have worked. Just 8 hours after the game's reveal, it had already pulled in 1 million players. Just 3 days later, that number had grown to 10 million. Thanks to this release strategy, few people were talking about what Apex Legends wasn't. Instead, they were jumping in to see what it was. Despite the successful launch of Apex Legends, some gamers definitely would have preferred a full-fledged Titanfall sequel. According to Kotaku's Jason Schreier, the company was indeed working on Titanfall 3, at least initially, with the journalist speculating that the sequel project eventually mutated into the Battle Royale game instead. But the lack of a third mainline game so far doesn't mean the Titanfall universe is dead and gone. The story will likely just continue in Apex Legends, at least for now, with the multiplayer game picking up decades after the events of Titanfall 2's campaign. Shortly after the surprise release of Apex Legends, Respawn co-founder Vince Zampella got fans riled up with an announcement that seemed to promise more Titanfall in the future. Writing on Twitter, Zampella said, "We are also working on more Titanfall for later in the year. Yes, I said the T-word. We love being able to experiment in this crazy universe. It's a message that seems designed to muddy the waters, especially considering Respawn has also claimed that it was never working on Titanfall 3. It raises the question, how would the company have time to complete a whole new Titanfall game by the end of 2019? It seems more likely that those experiments he's talking about will instead be content for Apex Legends. And while that's not the best case scenario for series diehards, it'll have to do for now." Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more SVG videos about your favorite stuff are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.